next book up is called The Body, A Guide for Occupants by Bill Bryson. Now, for those of you that don't know, Bill Bryson's pretty well known. He's written quite a few other books. He's written on language, history, science, travel, and all kinds of stuff. This is a good list of a lot of his other works in the front of this book. Another book that he's actually written, I haven't finished it, but I've read most of it, is called A Short History of Nearly Everything. It's awesome. I really, really like Bill Bryson. I think he's an amazing author. The Body is from 2019. It has about 380 pages. Again, this is another really, really good book that has tons of citations in the back. So all of these pages are on just notes on the sources that he used. And then there's the actual bibliography. And then there's an index. So again, all kinds of scientific information for when you get stuck on a section in the book, or if you're thinking, where's the research for this? I want to go double check that on my own. All of that's in the back. This book is awesome. Both of these books are actually pretty similar in how they're structured. The chapters are pretty much broken down into either one or two chapter segments that talk about a specific topic. So obviously in this book, it would be focused on a different part of the body. So if we go to the table of contents and read off a couple of the chapter titles, you'll get an idea for what does this book actually cover about the body. So the first chapter is kind of just an introduction, how to build a human. Then it gets to the outside, skin and hair, microbial you. There's a chapter on the brain. There's a chapter on the head. There's a chapter on the heart and blood. There's a chapter on the immune system. There's a chapter on deep breath. There's one on sleep. There's one on the guts. There's one on nerves and pain. There's a chapter on diseases. There's a chapter on cancer. There's a chapter on medicine. So a couple of the main reasons why I really like this book is, first of all, for those of you that aren't experts in science or you don't have a background on physiology or anatomy, which I definitely do not, this book was easy enough to understand. I have a pretty good science background, and I've done a lot of my own research, but even if you don't have a scientific background, this book is pretty easy to understand what he's talking about, and if there are terms that are not common knowledge, they are described by him to give you a little bit of better understanding about what he's actually talking about. Another reason is that the chapters flow pretty well from one concept to the next. So if you want to learn about the blood, you should probably understand how the circulatory system works, right? So he transitions from one section or one chapter into the next really well so that you don't feel like there's any gaps in your understanding or he left you off without explaining a topic well. Another reason why I really like this book and everything else by Bill Bryson that I've read is that it covers all of the important information, but if you looked up like a Wikipedia page on the brain and you read through the whole thing, it would just tell you all of the functional and important information. But Bill Bryson actually does a really good job just throwing in extra tidbits like small factoids here and there, or a historical story that probably wouldn't come up if you were just reading a textbook chapter on what does the heart do, okay? So a lot of extra information that for a nerd like me who just likes to know information, throwing in extra tidbits I think is amazing, because that's what really makes it interesting when you're learning new stuff, is connecting it to other concepts. How does learning about the body connect to history? What do we understand about medicine from the past? All those kinds of things are really, really interesting, and Bill Bryson does a really good job not only transitioning from one concept to the next, but weaving in all of those extra details that I, as a reader, find really, really interesting. This is probably one of my favorite reads from this year. Now, I'm gonna have to go back and read it again, because as you can see, it's pretty big. I was not able to retain all this information, just because my brain needs to go over things more than once, so I'm gonna need to read it again, but I do highly recommend this, even if you're not interested in science. It's literally called The Body, A Guide for Occupants. Every single one of you that's watching this, unless this is some point way in the future where you're like a cyborg or an AI computer system, you have a body. You should understand how it works, right? If you drive a car, you should probably know the basics. How to change the oil, how to fill up your tires with air, how to fill it up with gas, right? You need to understand the basics. Same thing is true about having your own body. And the more you understand about how it works, the easier it is to make sure that it's running functionally. So I highly recommend it for everybody, even if you're not interested in science. If you are interested in science, obviously I recommend it even more. Great, great book. One of my favorites from this year.